Hello and welcome. My cat is already on the way. I can hear her purring. You coming down, baby? Hey! Here she is. I don't know. Can you see that? She's here. Anyway, so today we're going to be talking about, hi Ursula. Hi baby. Today we're going to be talking about the most common reasons people rehome their rats as kind of a thought process for new rat owners or people who are about to get rats, what to consider before getting those rats, because it can be pretty easy to get swept up in like cute rats, playful rats, wanting to participate in the rat community, that kind of thing, and not necessarily consider all the aspects of what it takes to have rats. So we're going to talk about that. Okay. We're going to talk about that. Hopefully it's helpful to someone. A couple of disclaimers before we go on. One, there are good and legitimate reasons to rehome a pet. Not everyone who rehomes a pet is abandoning that animal, dumping that animal, getting rid of that animal. There are a lot of instances and situations in which rehoming the animal is what is best for the owner or the animal themselves. And two, attacking people who have rehomed animals is never a good idea, because either they're doing it from a really good, genuine place and you're just making them feel bad, or they do just want to get rid of the animal. It's not common, but it does happen. And pushing those people specifically into feeling attacked can result in a dumped pet. So attacking people who are trying to rehome an animal is never a good idea. Just go in assuming that they're doing it for the reasons they're stating and it's coming from a good place, because most of the time it is. And in general, coming at things from like a kind place will get you further than attacking someone, even if you feel like they're doing something for the wrong reasons. All right, let's get into it. So let's start with time. So a lot of people feel like they just don't have an adequate amount of time for the pet that they are getting. And most pets, most mammals at any rate, do take up a lot of time. Invertebrates, reptiles, and fish, depending on how many fish tanks you have, tend to not take up very much time, but mammals do take up time because they create more waste. They have to eat sometimes multiple times a day. They need more attention, that sort of thing. And hi, hey June. Oh, you gonna get me? You gonna get me? Do. And rats are no exception to this, because they do create a lot of waste. However, there are some things that can be done to mitigate this. One, don't listen to people who say rats need to be out of their cage 3 to 5 hours a day, because that is simply unrealistic. Rats don't even really need to be taken out of their cage every single day. So free roam is, a lot of people say it is a bonus. It is not a requirement. I am kind of on the fence on that. I do feel like they do not need for sure to be taken out for a set amount of time every single day. I do think that you should free roam when you can for however long you feel comfortable with, because there's just a lot of benefits to it. It's enriching for them. It helps you bond with them. And like 90% of the time when I catch a health issue, it is during free roam. So I do think that free roam is important and good for you and the rat, but it is not 1,000% necessary to do it every single day for an hour or 2 hours, 3 to 5 hours. None of that is necessary. And one thing to keep in mind, a lot of people feel bad when they can't take their rats out, because it has been pressed upon them so much by so many people that it's a necessity to do it every single day, and it makes them feel guilty. But one thing you should keep in mind is that if you have a good, enriching cage environment for them, that their cage is their home. They feel safe in here. They want to be in here. It's basically like you go on a shopping trip, but you want to come home at the end of that shopping trip. Think of that as a free roam. Is like, they're out, they're enriched, but then they want to go home afterward. And that will really help you kind of understand whether or not your rat needs free roam as frequently as people say. Now, I do choose to free roam pretty frequently with my rats, but again, it is not a requirement. So next, let's talk about veterinary care. This is another common reason that people end up having to rehome their pet, because they want the best for their pet and something happens. Either they need a surgery or they get sick. I saw recently someone needed to rehome their rats because they developed some kind of respiratory issue. You good, babe? Some kind of respiratory issue, and the rats were passing away, and she just didn't have what she needed to take them to the vet to get them on antibiotics, and she was trying to rehome them. And that can be tricky, especially if you are someone who wants to help. Keep in mind, this is also for people who are looking to get rats that are being rehomed. This can be tricky because if a whole cage of rats has a respiratory issue like that, then you do have to kind of assume it's contagious. And if you have rats at home, it is a danger to bring them into your home, because even the best quarantine, if it's in the same home, there's only so much you can do. So it can be tricky. But yes, so a lot of times people will try to rehome their pets when they cannot afford their medical care. And this is one of those things that a lot of people like to judge other people for, but we're going to be seeing a lot of this in the not too distant future, at least in the States, due to everything, and you know what I'm talking about. So a lot of people are going to be rehoming their pets for medical situations because, especially in the States, financially speaking, there's very little stability for most people, and things can change very quickly. One bad day can set you back months or even years financially speaking. So try your best, have a vet fund if you can have a vet fund. I like to put aside at least the cost of an exam every single paycheck. So for me, I live in the south of the United States, and that means that I have fairly cheap-ish vet bills, like in comparison to like Washington or New York, where their vet stuff is like crazy sometimes. So for me, an exam is $65 to $100, and I do think setting aside at least the cost of an exam fee every paycheck will benefit you greatly in the future, and you will thank yourself if you can. But that is a common reason that people will rehome their pets, is in order to get them the medical attention that they need. Another, unfortunately common reason people will rehome their pets is that they got the rats for their child, who can range in age. I've seen it all the way up to teenagers. That child has lost interest in the rats. I have a lot of mixed feelings on pets for kids in general, because I do have friends who have kids who enjoy their pets. But the big difference here is that the pets are for the adults and the kids can enjoy them. The adults take on all the responsibility without even hesitating. And then those make for happy children and happy adults, because the kids get to enjoy them, the animal doesn't suffer, and the adult doesn't have to stress about what to do with this animal they didn't want. I do not believe in the teaching a child responsibility by giving them a living creature, because it's cruel to the animal in question. The animal will suffer. There's a reason that there's a whole bunch of jokes about hamsters dying in horrible ways, and it's because the hamster is not considered a living being that can feel things, but a toy for a child. And that's not good. And it's not healthy for the children to learn responsibility that way, because you're basically just teaching them that this living creature doesn't actually matter that much. It's just a teaching tool. And I don't like that. So if you want to get your kid a pet, that's fine. Just accept that you are responsible. You're responsible financially. You're responsible for taking care of that animal. And you're responsible for taking on that animal if your kid, or when your kid, loses interest. But that is a common reason people will rehome their pet rats. It is unfortunate. I saw it just the other day with 3 gorgeous rats who deserved better. Another very common reason people rehome their pet rats is because they smell. And they do. They can. I am being stared at. Hi, Missy. Hi, baby. What are you doing? Hey, baby girl. Rats do smell. They can smell at the very least. So, like, I currently have 4 groups of rats. I have the 3 that are in this room and then the 1 in the living room. And for the most part, mine don't actually smell that much. Maybe close to cage cleaning day, but for the most part, not that much. The dwarf group takes a little extra maintenance because they pee on everything. They drink a lot, which means they pee a lot, which means they pee on a lot of things. And I don't know how, when everyone I've talked to says their dwarfs don't smell as much, mine smell so much more than my other rats. They're weird. I don't know. But they do occasionally smell. And what I do is I go in and I clean them out. Not the whole cage, because you do want to leave some of their scent in there. You don't want to do a full cage clean where you take out like all the fleece, all the bedding, all that, more than once a week, because it's going to make them scent mark more. but I'll take out whatever smells as it starts to smell, and that does help the situation a lot. Now, I have mostly females and neutered males. I do not have any intact males. And that also really helps with the smell. Intact, standard size males smell horrendous. They smell the most. I personally haven't had intact males, but my friend has, and yeah, they smelled. And she'll admit that they smelled. And a lot of times breeders will get comments like that too, of like, oh, I can smell this room, because intact male rats smell. And for some people, it's just too much. But again, you can mitigate this somewhat. Diet plays a factor. If you feed them a healthy diet, sometimes they smell a little less. Reducing the amount of fleece in their cage helps them smell less, because fleece does not do anything to mitigate odor. The same with paper bedding. It does not neutralize odors. It just kind of absorbs the dampness, but not the smell. So you can try like wood chips, stuff like that, or paper pellets, pine pellets, that kind of thing. And all those things can help reduce the smell. But chances are, if you have a living creature in your house, there's going to be an odor. Even with like reptiles and fish, like fish tanks have a smell to them. Reptiles have a smell to them. Most pets are going to have a smell. So that's just something you need to go in understanding they have an odor. Now, another very common reason for people to rehome their pet rats is behavioral problems. And this is usually some form of aggression, a lot of times with male rats, sometimes with female rats, but it is more common to see with male rats. It's often biting or fighting other male rats, or even the owners. And a lot of people just get overwhelmed by this very easily, which is understandable, because it is scary, especially if they're going after you. And they don't know what to do, so they just want to offer their pet rat to someone who can handle it. And I don't actually think there's anything wrong with that, because if you get to a point where you're scared of your pet and you don't want to handle them, it's going to be very difficult for you to handle them. There are options that you can take, such as neutering them. That is the first and foremost option. Spaying and neutering does help with rats and their aggression issues most of the time. If at the very least it reduces it a lot of the time, but most of the time it will take care of it completely. Now, you do occasionally get some rats like Thistle who just retains a little bit of that spiciness, but she is not a danger to me. She is just a little bit of a danger to Baker because she's rude, but they've been getting along a lot better, actually. They've been cuddling a lot more. She's still mean because she's Thistle, but she's cuddling him right now. She's like stomping on his head a little bit, but she's trying to cuddle him. It's fine. It's cute. So yes, spaying and neutering does help a lot. And a lot of people cannot afford that, and the surgeries are just getting more expensive as time goes on. So again, having a vet fund can help with this if you can. Otherwise, it is really the only solution for a lot of aggression issues is spaying or neutering. Some of it can be fear-based, which can be a lot harder to deal with, but it is usually a hormonal issue, and taking away the hormones is the best solution. Next, let's talk about allergies. So, a lot of people are allergic to rats. A lot of people are allergic to rats. In fact, if you have allergies, assume you're going to be allergic to rats. So, of the people I know who have rats, I am the only one I can think of that is not to some degree allergic to them. My friend Kendra is allergic to rats. She just puts up with it. Like, they make her a little bit itchy, and boys make her, like, they give her a little bit of respiratory issue. Intact standard size males do. There's Cappy, who can only handle them for a couple of seconds before she gets itchy, and the longer she handles them, she'll break out in hives. There's my friend Ashley, who has mild allergies to rats, I believe. The breeder I got Baker from is extremely allergic to intact male rats, to the point where she needs an inhaler when she's around them. It is very common for people to be allergic to rats. I thankfully am not. At least as of right now, because it is also common for people to develop allergies to rats. So I do suggest, if possible, before you get rats, when you're starting to think about maybe getting rats, if you can handle some rats, if you have a friend with rats or something, go handle the rats. Spend some time in the room with them. See how you deal with it. You good, Thistle? My love? How you handle it. See if you break out. See if your throat gets itchy or closes up. See if you get stuffed up. See how you react. Because honestly, more people including those who have pet rats. More people are at least slightly allergic to them than not, it seems. I feel lucky that I currently, knock on wood, do not have any allergies to my rats. Now, just because you're allergic to them doesn't mean it's a blanket no. Intact standard size male rats are what cause the worst allergy reactions I've noticed. People seem to be less allergic to females and less allergic to dwarfs and less allergic to neutered males even. So there are still options if you do have a reaction to specifically intact male rats where you can try other things. But it is common and there's not much you can do about that. Don't make anyone feel guilty for suddenly not being able to breathe around their rats. If they have to rehome them, they have to rehome them. This also goes for children. I see a lot of times where people get pet rats for their children as a surprise, and it turns out the child is allergic to them, sometimes severely allergic to them. So again, if you can test your allergies with pet rats in person, I suggest that, including with your children. I know you might want to do it as a surprise, but it might be better for you, the child, and the children to let them handle the rat before bringing them home, if possible. Another common thing is people think they can't have pet rats if they have some sort of predatory animal in the house. So usually it's cats. People will say, I have to rehome my rats because there's a cat in this house, or I'm moving to a place with a cat, or I want a cat. Which, if you're rehoming a pet so you can get another pet, I do find that annoying. That is not a good reason to rehome a pet. But anyway, it is actually entirely possible to have rats with cats, with dogs, even with reptiles that eat rodents. It's just a matter of basically not letting them around each other. And I don't even mean not in the room. I mean, if the rats are out of their cage, have the predatory animal in a different room. It's as simple as that. With cats, close the door when you leave. Make sure they're not in there when you're not in there, because rats' tails do fall out of the cage and cats can bite those. That is basically exactly what a cat's predatory instincts train them to do, is go after tails. Dogs I don't find to be that difficult. Like, I have my dogs, I had my dogs. I had two at some point, and I currently only have the one. But, Cujo. Hi! Come here! Speaking of, come here! Come here! Okay. Oh, good girl. Come here. Ooh. This creature is a Dachshund Maltese mix. And so is her sister when we had her sister. She has unfortunately passed away. And Cujo here is very Maltesey in that she's just a lap dog. But Buttercup, Dachshunds are basically terrier hounds. And she would sometimes look at my rats predatorily. And so she wasn't allowed in the room, even when I had them out in my hands, because she was dangerous. Cujo here probably won't do anything. I still don't let her in the room when the rats are like free roaming. But I don't mind if she's around when the cage door is open. And with reptiles that eat rodents, I would just suggest keeping them in another room, because if they smell them constantly, it can trigger some violent reactions when you try to feed them. And lastly, definitely top 3 most common reasons I see people rehoming their rats is they're moving. And if you're moving to a place that doesn't allow rats, there's not much you can do about that except rehome them. But if they do allow rats and you're just worried the rats won't make the move, well, rats actually travel extremely well. I've gotten some rats from like across the country. I moved a total of 20 rats from Arizona to Texas, and everyone was fine. No one even got a respiratory infection. So if you want to keep them and you're just nervous they won't do well in the drive, they will do well. They'll do fine, actually, in all likelihood. So you just get a travel cage and you put their normal bedding in it. You stuff it full of as much stuff as possible, make it safe in case they tumble. And you get some cucumber, some melon, some like watery vegetables and fruits, and you give that to them so they stay hydrated. And that's all you got to do, really. And they travel extremely well. In fact, one of the people I follow on Instagram basically travels often with her rats, going from one place to another every like 6 months to stay. And her rats never had an issue. So if you want to keep them, it is entirely possible to do so. Alright, so those are the most common reasons I see people rehoming their rats. I hope that if you're thinking about getting rats, you take these things into consideration, like when are you going to move? Do you know what they smell like? Do you know if you have allergies to them? That sort of thing. So that you're prepared for having them and hopefully being able to keep them for their entire life. If you can't, it happens. Hopefully you can find them a good home. My dog is trying to get around my cat, but she's scared of the cat, so it's not going well. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you know what to do. All the good stuff down below. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye!